The spark of violence will begin in a person who cannot find peace inside themselves. This will be a person who has lost connection with themselves. On top of that, they may have spent a large period of time without experiencing unconditional love from a person close to them. And they may have had that love removed and felt rejection and abandonment as a consequence. They may have also experienced the breaking of trust, deceit, or emotional abuse. Because of this, they feel empty, hurt, and eventually angry, vengeful, and violent. These individuals cannot feel themselves anymore. For that simple reason, they cannot feel anybody else. They feel neglected, disenfranchised, ignored, and alone inside, and feel that no one can reach them anymore. Most of the time, they cannot even reach themselves. It is clear to themselves and everyone around them that this is unhealthy, but it is almost impossible to work out exactly what is wrong. Sometimes the problem started so young that their adult minds cannot connect to the childhood experiences anymore, so the causation is lost. Numb to their own inner turmoil, the inevitable happens. Empathy, sympathy, and sentiment die, and they cannot feel anyone else's pain anymore. It's not that they don't care about hurting another person. The situation is not like that. If they could feel pain, they would care. The problem is they have blocked out suffering completely, both their own and consequently everyone else's. So when an individual like that starts acting violently towards another, the spark begins. And once it begins, it draws in others who are in a similar position, and a war begins. If others cannot feel pain anymore, you have a recipe for endless violence on the streets. Many people who get involved in violent crime, with knives for example, are not always as troubled, but they are forced to attack others as a form of defense, protection, status, revenge, and a good dose of peer pressure. The cycle is fueled by deeply disconnected young people triggering those who are vulnerable and impressionable, and whose inner connection is fragile. Even those who have no real involvement in the scene are dragged into it. Music, movies, and other mediums spawn from it because art always reflects society. The police find themselves up against a new animal they can't control, and the government remains clueless as to what is really going on. Education systems turn on these people and label them delinquents, so jobs and money are hard to come by. A social media-driven capitalistic society bombards desirable items to the senses all day, through every medium possible. But with no education, no qualifications, there is no way of obtaining the objects of their desire. So the inner struggle and anger becomes a sword and shield when entering drug crimes and robberies in order to get financial power, to fulfill these desires, and sometimes even just basic needs. Many people call for stiffer sentences, but how can you isolate, harm, and hurt someone as a way of teaching that person when that person already feels alone, rejected, and hurt? Isolation stops becoming a punishment at that point, and society is left scratching its head and wiping up the blood.